UFC 308. These are the full card predictions and betting breakdown. I'm looking forward to talking about each of the matchups on this card on the road, but back in studio Tuesday. Don't worry. Make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new, subscribe. Turn the post notifications on and make sure you share the video too. And also note, I will be live for the entire UFC 308 fight card Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Super early start. Don't miss the fight companion. I'm looking forward to it. And let's get into the fights. First fight on the card, we got Bruno Silva versus Ismail Naurdiev. I'm going to go with the side of Ismail Naurdiev, and I understand he has some flaws. I mean, he's 2-2 in the UFC. He got cut from the promotion after he lost to Sean Brady, but he was pretty young at the time. He's still only 28 years of age. I know he's 1-2 in his last 3, and he does have a bad loss to Vadim Kutsi, who ended up getting exposed on Contender Series. To be fair, though, he got caught by a looping punch. Before that, his striking was looking pretty clean. And also, that fight was at 175 pounds, a super welterweight division. Whereas he's at 185, I actually think he'll look better with a little more weight on him, not having to cut the extra 10 pounds. And I think that Bruno Silva is kind of teetering towards the end of his career. I mean, 1-4 over his last 5. Last time out, the Weidman fight, not a horrible loss. I think it was more of a robbery. I mean, it was horrible watching it happen because he's getting his eyes clawed out. But it's not like he got completely washed in the fight and just got finished off by Weidman. He had some decent exchanges with big shots, but I feel like Bruno Silva gets a little bit too wild at times, and he's been more calculated in the past, but recently I think Bruno Silva tries to force the finish, and if they don't come, he leaves himself open to counters, and I think Naurdiev is pretty slick with his counter shots. I think he's got pretty good straight shots. He's got nice leg kicks. I think at 28 years of age and now at 185 pounds, the potential that's been there is actually going to be lived up to a tad. And I don't think Bruno Silva is in the prime of primes. I think that he's at a point where he's a little slower, a little less confident, definitely less confident. And even though Naurdiev has taken some losses, I think his confidence is still really high because he's a young guy. He's 28. He's coming into his prime now. And on the second UFC run, I think he's going to do well. And I'm going to pick him to beat Bruno Silva. Method of victory is crazy here. I could see him finding the chin of Bruno, but I think I'm going to lean towards a competitive fight. The odds are even for a reason. You might as well flip a damn coin on this matchup odds-wise. -110 for Silva, -110 for Naurdiev. Bruno Silva, heavy-handed knockout chance, but Naurdiev has slick shots on the feet. If he gets caught by something loopy, of course, he could end up getting put down and out. But the even odds make a lot of sense to me. I think this is a pretty even fight. And I think that Naurdiev finds a way to win, being the younger guy. I think he's going to be able to put it on Bruno Silva. He'll be a little bit quicker, a little bit more precise, and hard-fought win. I'm going to go with Ismail Naurdiev to beat Bruno Silva, coming into the UFC on his return fight. Probably an undeserved return to the UFC because, like I said, it's not like he's been on a tear or anything like that, but he's getting brought back because of the potential that I think has always been there. And, he looks good. Prior to him getting caught by Kutsi, don't tell me his hands weren't looking smooth. His leg kicks were on point. They call him the Austrian Wonder Boy. The kid has great kicking skills. It's just, I think, he's had some hard fights. Bruno Silva was losing and striking with Shara Bullet for sure. And I think Naurdiev is going to have decent takedown defense and clean enough striking where he can match Bruno Silva and maybe even surprises us with a little grappling on display. I'm going to go with Naurdiev to find a way to beat the 35-year-old Bruno Silva. First fight down. Let's keep on running. Next fight, we have Ibo Aslan versus Rafael Cerqueira. I think that Rafael Cerqueira, the Lion, is a special talent. And I think that he's kind of being a tad bit overlooked. I think people are high on Ibo Aslan because he showed a ton of knockout power. He dropped Terkali badly, and that was their rematch. He had lost to him outside the UFC, got a finish on the damn Contender Series. But when you really look at the style, he's a plodding guy. He fights more of an older style where he's just plodding forward, lacking head movement. And I think that though he has heavy hands, his lack of slickness and slips and parries is going to get him hit in the face a lot. Cerqueira, even though he's been mostly a can crusher throughout his career, He trains with Jailton Almeida. Jailton Almeida has praised him at post-fight press conferences before. And when you watch his style, he has a very creative kickboxing / Muay Thai striking flow, dangerous elbows, dangerous flying knees, spin elbow attacks. He mixes it up really nicely, and I think he's clearly faster than Ibo Aslan. So I think that Rafael Cerqueira is going to end up going out there and knocking Ibo out. Ibo was getting touched a bit by Anton Turkalj in their rematch too. I'm not sold on him. So say what you want about resume of Rafael. I think that the potential and the skills and the way he's beating those guys, I feel as though is evidence that he has the technical abilities to take out a guy like Ibo Aslan, who, yes, is 13-1, but I think a tad bit overrated. Let's keep looking at the odds, all right? Let's jump to him. Wow, Ibo's -123 is the favorite. That's interesting. Rafael Cerqueira is sitting at +103. I'm going with the underdog. I think Rafael can outstrike him. I think he can hurt him on the feet. And if you're training with Jailton Almeida, I'm not doubting your ground skills either. I would rather go under 2.5 as opposed to under 1.5 if we're looking at odds. But I'm going to go with Rafael Cerqueira to pull through. I think the Lion is going to make an impactful debut. I know he's 34, right? So he's, you know, an older prospect, certainly. But he's 11-0. He seems to have a lot of promise. I like the quickness. I like the slickness. And I like his chances to beat a stiff brawler like Ibo Aslan. So I'm riding with the Lion in this fight. Let's keep looking up. Next one, we have Rinat Fakhretdinov versus Carlos Leal. I'm so tempted to pick Leal, but I'm going to pick Fakhretdinov because Leal is stepping in on short notice. He was initially supposed to be fighting at 175 this week, but in, I believe, UAE Warriors. He takes this short notice opportunity to take on Rinat Fakhretdinov, who I have some problems with. Fakhretdinov gets really sloppy late in fights, and sometimes he just throws like flailing punches with his arms. But he does have decent slickness with his hands. He does pick his shots fairly well when he has cardio, but he uses his striking more so to use smothering style pressure wrestling. Now, Leal does have good grappling defense, and when you look at his PFL run, only losses are to Sabido C, which I rate as, you know, pretty impressive L's to take. Sabido C is pretty solid. And he's beaten some decent guys like Delano Taylor over in the PFL. Recently got a win in LFA, but Manuel Mina is an absolute can. It's just the step up in competition for Leal is going to be pretty real, especially taking on a guy who has a really strong knack for landing takedowns and making fighters uncomfortable. I think Leal is going to be put in a spot where he's out-wrestled, and Leal normally has relatively good wrestling, but I do feel as though I favor his striking in this fight. He's got a nice patient pressure style. He's comfortable switching stances. There's a lot of things that I like about his stand-up. The way he holds his set at times reminds me of Alex Pereira. I think he's a nice prospect. It's just, I believe Fakhretdinov, with the UFC experience, Fakhretdinov being set for this matchup, and the fact that that wrestling, when it's late, is probably going to be the secret weapon in the back pocket. I'm not saying he's going to beat Carlos Leal up, and I think Leal is going to be competitive in moments of this fight. But when it gets down to the nitty-gritty, I think Fakhretdinov's superior wrestling skills are going to be an ultimate difference maker, and I think that's what's going to give him the win. Now, as far as the odds for the fight, Fakhretdinov is going to be the favorite because they haven't released odds yet. They just made this fight today, I believe. Earlier today. If not, it was like late yesterday. So this is a super late notice addition to the card. Leal's got balls for stepping in. I respect it. And I do think it's a positive that he was supposed to fight in Abu Dhabi. But damn, there is a different level when you jump from UAE Warriors to Rinat Fakhretdinov, who, though he is flawed, he beat Nicholas Dalby. Nicholas Dalby is a really hard guy to beat, man. He's like that true top caliber gatekeeper test. He's like number 17 in the weight class. And if you can beat him, you deserve the best guys in the world. And the fact that Fakhretdinov beat him and was able to throw hard shots late, even if I didn't love the technique, it's a sign that he can beat a Carlos Leal, who's a, you know, pretty solid vet. Pretty good fighter, and I think he's going to do fairly well in the UFC. I actually think it's a really good signing Leal's got a ton of promise and potential. I just think Fakhretdinov a tad bit too much for him, and I'm going to ride with the side of Rinat Fakhretdinov to pull through in a hard-fought decision against an MMA veteran who's fought in the PFL. But let me tell you, the level from PFL to the UFC is a real jump. The best guys in PFL, for the most part, there's exceptions, they're not to the level of the UFC guys. Look what Ngannou just did to Renan Ferreira, who won the tournament over there. So I think Leal, though he's got promise and potential, and he's probably top 30, he's not ready for Fakhretdinov, who's right up there at top 15. So Rinat Fakhretdinov to get the win. I'm picking him over Carlos Leal, and what should be a pretty fun fight. Next fight on the card, we have Farid Basharat versus Victor Hugo. I think Farid Basharat is a pretty straight-up pick in this fight here. I mean, if you can beat Taylor Lapilus, like, you're right there as far as top 15 bantamweights go. I rate Taylor Lapilus pretty highly. And the fact that Basharat was pretty dominant winning that decision, outstriking him, out-grappling him, I feel like that's a massive accolade. It's a much bigger win than beating a Victor Hugo. Hugo's a fun prospect. I mean, he's got pretty powerful striking. He's got fast punches, looping shots a lot of the times. And sometimes he does get, a tad bit reckless and out of position, whereas Basharat is quite the opposite. I'd consider him a precision striker who's incredibly well-rounded. I definitely believe he's the better of the Basharat brothers. And I think Victor Hugo's going to have a hard time finding any advantage in this fight. I don't think he's the better grappler. Maybe in pure gi jiu-jitsu, I'd favor Victor Hugo. But with MMA grappling and the wrestling aspect, I think that Farid Basharat is just going to be too good. And I predict that Farid Basharat gets a fight in 2025 with somebody in the top 15. And him dominating Victor Hugo, probably 30-27, is the right way to run it up. So Farid Basharat for the W. I think he's winning. Like I said, Lapilus W is massive. And Falco had some moments with Victor Hugo, especially on short notice too. I got to go Basharat all day long to win this thing when Falco gave him some trouble on short notice. So Basharat's a minus 600 favorite as expected. I do think we go over 1.5. Why is that minus 145? That's interesting. Victor Hugo's a plus 425 underdog. He's a massive underdog in this fight. I'm going to pick Basharat. I'm going to pick 30-27, dominant decision, clean striking, and even maybe some well-timed takedowns because I just think he's that good. Basharat for the win and keeps on running up the ranks. Keep your eye on him heading into 2025. I'm excited for what's next. Next fight up, we got Kennedy Nzechukwu versus Chris Barnett. Barnett stepping in on short notice. He was supposed to fight 2 cards ago. He was supposed to take on Junior Tafa, actually, at Vegas 98. Now he's taking on Kennedy Nzechukwu in Abu Dhabi, which is kind of crazy. I'm going with Kennedy Nzechukwu to win. Listen, this damn height difference between these two is mesmerizing. 5'9 versus 6'5, 75-inch reach versus 83. Say what you want about Nzechukwu's recent performances, like the OSP fight and the Dustin Jacoby loss. He still has had nice moments in the UFC. He submitted Devin Clark. He finished Iwan Kutelaba, who I still rate, as a pretty decent light heavyweight. Beat Carl Roberson, but he beat him up. And Roberson's not that great, but if you beat him up, it's a good sign. Nzechukwu has a bit of an awkward striking style at times, and I would even consider him clunky in certain moments, but he does have KO power. He has improved. He's got a speed advantage in this fight. He's got a massive length advantage. I think he's better on the ground as well. Barnett's a fun brawler, but let's not forget he was getting hurt by Jake Collier earlier in this fight. I think Kennedy Nzechukwu wins. I'm kind of seeing a ground and pound finish. Maybe he gets full mount and just beats him up, gets a stoppage on the floor. I think that Nzechukwu is going to do good work. It's just too much of a lopsided size differential. I just don't think Chris Barnett is going to be able to deal with Nzechukwu. I think Nzechukwu slept on. He's a little chinny, but I don't think Chris Barnett can even reach his chin, bro. The height difference is insane in this fight. So Nzechukwu, to me, initially and still now, seemed as though it's a clear as day prediction, and that's why I'm riding with Kennedy Nzechukwu to take home a nice W. We're going with the African Savage over the Beast Boy, and damn, minus 550 are the odds. I kind of agree. I think minus 550 is fair. Nzechukwu plus 400, Barnett plus 400 as the underdog in this fight. He deserves to be a massive underdog. He was a big underdog with Tafa. Now he's taking on Nzechukwu, who's way more well-rounded. This is a way harder fight than Tafa. So I think that Nzechukwu is good to go. And he's actually getting an easier fight. So this is better for him. I'm going with Nzechukwu to take home a nice W. And I think he's going to look good. I think he's going to put on a solid performance. Heavyweight debut in the UFC for him, and I think he thrives, and I think he shines. Let's keep running up. Next fight. Ibo Magomedov versus Bruno Ferreira. I'm going with Ibo Magomedov. I have so many question marks around Bruno Ferreira. Like, let's be honest, he was getting touched a bit by Dustin Stoltzfus in their fight. On top of that, he also looked pretty fatigued towards the end before he gets the, spin elbow knockout, which was an absolutely badass technique. Let's give him some damn credit. It was tremendous. But straight up, I mean, he was looking kind of wild and chaotic. I know it's powerful and I know it's impressive, but if Dustin Stoltzfus is having striking success, Magomedov is going to have striking success. Magomedov is a clean and precise kickboxer. It's easy to write him off because of losses, but look at the guys he's losing to. Sean Strickland, Caio Baraiho, two of the best middleweights on the planet, and now Bruno Ferreira, who's a fun brawler, is going to go and dominate Magomedov or chin him in the first round. I think it's rather unlikely. Magomedov is very well-rounded. Magomedov is a technical striker who has pretty good shot-picking abilities, and he has underrated wrestling/grappling skills, which I think are going to be advantages. I know Ferreira comes from a judo base, but he's an MMA striker. He's a brawling knockout artist, and I think Ibo Magomedov has a real chance to put him on his back and beat him up a bit. I'm going to pick Ibo Magomedov to win. I think you have to favor the finish for Magomedov simply because the way Ferreira fights, he pretty much blows his wad. He's been to the second round twice in his entire career that spans 13 pro fights. So, yeah, Ibo Magomedov, decision, probably mixing in some wrestling, making Ferreira uncomfortable, gassing him out, finishing him on the ground, potentially live for a submission, but I could see ground and pound. I was kind of initially thinking maybe he lays in praise to a decision, but I just don't know if Ferreira is going to allow that. I think Ferreira is going to shoot as hard as he can to get back up to his feet and potentially get finished on the ground because he's looking to win. Whereas like Warley Alves, who, Magomedov just dominated over the 3 rounds, was more complacent and more willing to accept bad positions and take the L, where I don't think Ferreira does. As far as the odds, minus 135 for Ibo Magomedov is weird to me. I was looking at the Nurmagomedov line with Willie Cat, and I thought it was 3-1, and I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. It's a minus 135 tag for Ibo Magomedov? That's insane to me. Ferreira's sitting at plus 115. I like Magomedov as the slight favorite. Opened up only at minus 145. That's interesting. Over 1.5, minus 120, I do believe happens. Over 2.5, a lot riskier with the way that Ferreira fights. I'm going to go with Ibo Magomedov to beat Bruno Ferreira. And I think he's going to expose the lack of cardio. And I think Magomedov's live for a finish in the second and third round. So Ibo Magomedov to take it home. I think he's going to look relatively good in this fight. And I'm taking him as the winner. Let's go. Next fight. Let's keep on running up. We got Said Nurmagomedov versus Daniel Willie Cat Santos. I'm going with Said Nurmagomedov, but I won't lie to you, I'm sad to be picking against Willie Cat. I'm a Willie Cat fan. I've been following Willie Cat since he came into the UFC, and I was excited about the Julio Arce fight. Even though he lost, I always knew he had decent potential. But you're going from fighting Johnny Munoz Jr., who I don't think is with the UFC anymore, to fighting Said Nurmagomedov, who's like pretty much top 15 at bantamweight and has been in there with good names and beaten good names and has got nasty submission skills with slick striking. You're going with Nurmagomedov all day. I think Nurmagomedov is actually live to finish Willie Cat. He might sub him. Nurmagomedov's got a really nice front headlock position, good guillotine chokes, and I think that Willie Cat is going to be looking for finishes. I mean, the way that he fights is more of, the killer beast kill style. He's more clean with it than like Bruno Ferreira in the long run, right? Second and third round. But he could potentially put himself into a bad spot. Either way, I think Nurmagomedov can strike with Willie Cat. I think he's technically superior. And I think he can outwork Willie Cat on the ground. I think he's got superior wrestling without a doubt. Even if it's just striking, though, I think Nurmagomedov is cleaner than Willie Cat on the feet. I think Said Nurmagomedov's on his way to an impressive win. I got him all day long. I'm picking him with relatively high confidence. I got to go with the OV. I'm going against the guy I'm a fan of, and I tell you guys all the time, I don't pick it based on fanhood. Of course, I love Willie Cat. He's a dope shoot-they-box fighter with a really fun style, and he's a cool dude. But Said Nurmagomedov is clean, and Said is 1,000% better than him, and just way too much of a step up in competition. With a year and 4 months off, you go from Johnny Munoz Jr. to Said Nurmagomedov. Hell no. Saeed all day. He's a 3-1 favorite. He should be. Willie Cap plus 250 as the underdog. The over 2.5 minus 180. I think it's a relative chance that we're going all three. I got Saeed Nurmagomedov as the 3-1 favorite, taking home a W. I see him winning this fight. I see him outworking and outpointing Willie Cat and potentially finishing him by submission. So Saeed Nurmagomedov for the W over a guy that I will consider myself a fan of. Saeed, simply the better fighter and way too much of a step up in competition right now. Next fight on the card, we have Mitabek Orolbai versus Mateusz Rębecki. I'm going with Mitabek Orolbai to beat Mateusz Rębecki. I think that his wrestling is a superior skill set that he's going to be looking to use here. Rębecki's really strong, though, especially in the first 7.5 minutes in the fight. Rębecki's a southpaw with knockout power in his hands. He's a physical specimen. He's short and stocky. The dude is absolutely jacked. But Mitabek Orolbai is a relatively good striker. I'd say he's pretty technical. He picks his shots nicely. He's patient with his attack. He mixes in wrestling pretty well. I think Mitabek Orolbai is probably going to be able to outwork Mateusz Rębecki, who's going to be looking to knock him out. Orolbai will then find opportunities to get this fight to the ground and control from top position. And I have to say, I don't know how good Rębecki's bottom game is going to be. From the bottom position, I think Rębecki could be, a menace and, exploding back up to his feet. Or he could get completely flattened out and bodied by Mitabek Orolbai. He's not known for the bottom game of jiu-jitsu like Elvis Brenner, who, Mitabek Orolbai just beaten, a fairly competitive fight, but still just beat. And I think Mateusz Rębecki, as good as he is with his offensive grappling, I think when you put him on the defensive side of things, he'll be uncomfortable here. He's dangerous early in the fight. I could see him landing good shots in round one, but I think Orolbai is going to know that Rębecki's looking to throw knockout punches, and I anticipate Orolbai to neutralize that heavy onslaught with pressure grappling. So I'm going to go with Mitabek Orolbai to find a way to win. I'm taking him on the judges' scorecards, and I think he's taking it home. As far as the odds, chalky favorite, minus 255, but I can't sit here and really argue with those lines. I think minus 255 is sensible for Mitabek Orolbai, even though, it's a little wide because 2 fights ago, Rębecki would have been even money with him. It's just, I think Orolbai's pressure wrestling and technical abilities are going to be the ultimate difference maker. Now, Rębecki's plus 215 as the underdog in this fight, I got to go for Orolbai. It's interesting that it's expected to go under, but I'm seeing 3 hard rounds of work. And I think that Mitabek Orolbai is going to take it home over Mateusz Rębecki on the judges' scorecards. Potentially 29-28. I could see Rębecki hitting him with some big shots in the first and then Orolbai securing the win with the second and third. Rębecki doesn't have a frame that's built for that high output over 3 rounds. He's looking to bring fire early on, and then the fire is going to dwindle down, and that is where Orolbai is going to shine because he discovered fire. So Mitabek Orolbai for the W, and I'm taking him by a unanimous decision. Next fight, it brings us to our featured prelim of the night. We have Geoff Neal versus Rafael dos Anjos. I'm going with Geoff Neal, and I got to tell you, I'm kind of weirded out that Rafael dos Anjos is getting a fight against Geoff Neal. I don't know. I don't think it makes that much sense. Recently lost to Vicente Luque, and the last win for Neal, he destroyed Vicente Luque. I know Geoff Neal's lost 2 straight, but he gave Ian Gary a really hard fight. Geoff Neal's clean on the feet. Geoff Neal's got legit knockout power, and he's not bad with defensive grappling either. I mean, you can look at the losses. It's like Shavkat Rakhmonov finishes him, but like it's Shavkat. Shavkat's that guy. He's fighting for the damn title. And listen, Neal was trying to bang with Shavkat, and you got to respect him sitting in the pocket mixing it up like that. Regardless of the outcome, he did get hurt in that fight. Dos Anjos at 40 years old is not going to be able to do it. As much as I consider him a nice crafty veteran, I don't see him winning. What's weird is it's his birthday on fight day. So happy birthday to RDA. Unfortunately, I don't think the birthday present is a win. I think he's getting chinned on his birthday. I'm actually thinking Geoff Neal's live for a knockout in this fight. Neal's got legit power. And when he starts putting his combinations together, he can do serious damage. Dos Anjos was knocked out by Fiziev a little while back. It was at 155. Up at 170, he did okay with Luque, but he got dominated. He lost every round, but he did okay because he survived the onslaught. Win over Brian Barberena means nothing to me. And then losing to Mateusz Gamrot, who's a pressure wrestler in a decent fight. I mean, not a horrible L for him, but to get now put out there against Geoff Neal, who I just think is simply a scarier matchup. It's up in weight, and it's a guy that can put you to sleep. Like, Geoff Neal knocks people out. I think Geoff Neal's going to catch Dos Anjos in the second or third round, and I think he's live for a KO win. If he starts putting his punch combinations together, you're going to see Dos Anjos shy away from the fight, and you're going to see Neal start dropping death touch shots on him. So Geoff Neal, hands of steel for the W. I'm picking him to win this thing. Minus 340 for Geoff Neal to win. Wow, these odds are crazy wide. They're chalky as hell. Plus 280 for Dos Anjos. Over 2.5 is currently sitting at minus 260. I think we're going under 2.5 at plus 200. But you're going to throw it down at that? No. I'd rather go Neal, and then if you want to prop bet Neal by knockout. But I don't know what that line is yet because it hasn't been released to the public. But I'm sure they will be releasing those lines over the course of, the next 48 hours. I'm picking Geoff Neal. I think the hands are dangerous. The kicking skills are legit. Battle of southpaws here. I actually think that's worse for RDA. I could see him getting caught with shots by Neal. And I think that he's going to take an L. So Geoff Neal to take it home. Knockout win. I'll say second or third round. And I think some momentum gets pushed back on the side of Geoff Neal as he sleeps the 40-year-old Rafael Dos Anjos. Let's keep on running. Next fight on the card. It is our main card opener. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. It's Shara Bullet Magomedov versus Armen Petrosyan. I'm picking Shara Bullet Magomedov to beat Armen Petrosyan. As much as I consider Petrosyan a clean kickboxer, he's at a speed disadvantage here with Shara Bullet. Watching Shara back and seeing him look slick with Oleg Jacek, I'm like, you know what? I like the way that he strikes, and I really like the way that he strikes against somebody that doesn't bring much of a wrestling threat. Armen Petrosyan is not known for mixing and wrestling. Now, granted, neither was Oleg Jacek, and he was trying to pressure wrestle Magomedov, even though, Magomedov was on the bottom. He's dropping nasty elbows on Oleg Jacek. Is Petrosyan going to turn into a wrestler? He might try, but I have to anticipate Shara Bullet's wrestling is going to continue to evolve as he's realizing that everybody is going to be shooting on him. Armen Petrosyan is not known for that style. I think Petrosyan does have good kickboxing, and I see competitive moments for sure, but I think Shara is definitely the better kicker of the two. He's got more snap on his shots. I also think he has better elbows. I would say they're considerably close as far as boxing, but what I like better about Shara Magomedov is the way that he flows in his striking style, right? He's very comfortable out of both stances, and I think that's going to give Armen Petrosyan trouble, and I feel as though Shara Magomedov is going to get past a difficult test in Armen Petrosyan. Petrosyan is like a legit gatekeeper for these high-level strikers, too. He lost last time out to, Rodolfo Vieira, who's a tremendous grappler, but win over Leroy Duncan, who's nasty, beat AJ Dobbs. He got taken down a bit. Lost to Kyle Barajo, who's a tremendous grappler, and then he's got that split decision over RoboCop in a competitive fight. In striker versus striker battles, Armen Petrosyan has come out on top in all of those UFC matchups, so it's interesting now to see him with Shara Bullet. I guess I'm giving Shara Bullet his respect. I do think that his striking is clean, man. And even though he does not offer a wrestling threat, I see him with the speed advantage. And there is a reason they have match made these two up against one another. I don't think it's for Shara Bullet to take a loss on this Abu Dhabi card. I think Shara Bullet is a star over in the Middle East, and I expect him to win. I also think the UFC is putting this matchup together with hopes that Shara Bullet could be the first guy in the UFC to chin Armen Petrosyan, but I just don't think that's super likely. Petrosyan's crafty, and I expect him to be difficult for Shara to deal with. And in a competitive fight, I think Shara Bullet does more damage, and like I said, speed advantage should be an evident factor between the two, especially with the lower half, and I'm going to pick Shara Bullet to take it home. He's a minus 185 favorite. Resume-wise, he shouldn't be that wide of a favorite. It should be much more like, the Abbas Magomedov and Ferreira fight, but is what it is. Petrosyan is plus 160 as the dog. Shara Bullet and Petrosyan to go over 2.5 is minus 245. I think that's rather high likely. I think you're going to see Shara Bullet do some damage to Armen Petrosyan first 2 rounds. I think Petrosyan might come on a little strong late. But I'm anticipating that Sharawbullit's takedown defense and, you know, defensive grappling abilities are better than ever before. And I'm going to guess that he's going to be improving that aspect of his game tremendously from fight to fight. And Petrosyan, not known as a high-caliber wrestler, occasionally might mix in a takedown, but just not what his game is built on. And I don't think he can change it up to beat Sharawbulit here. So Sharawbulit, Magomedov to beat Armen Petrosyan by a decision. Next fight on the card, we have Magomed Ankalaev versus Alexander Rakic. I'm going with Magomed Ankalaev, but let's give some respect to Alexander Rakic. In round one, the first 4 minutes of round one against Yuri Prochazka, Rakic looked like he could have easily been the UFC light heavyweight champion from the kickboxing range, more of, you know, the green zone rather, the longer range of striking. Alexander Rakic is one of the best in the game. He's got really slick kicking skills. He works good straights from the outside. He's explosive. He's powerful. And he moves really quick. He's got underrated speed from the outside. When you get in boxing range on him is where I do believe he starts to fall apart. He is not a highly proficient boxer on the inside. And he's taking on Ankalaev, who is extremely good at patient pressure boxing style of attack. Yeah, he rips some kicks, but like Ankalaev uses his hands, and sure, he does have wrestling in the back pocket, but that's not what his game is built upon. Ankalaev is a striker. He's more so specifically an MMA boxer. He's a southpaw with quick hands, with good punch combinations, and legit knockout power, and I think it's more the way that he chooses his shots lead to these knockouts. And I think that the way Rakic has to keep you at bay for such a long period of time to then go out and win. Like, sure, he'll knock some other guys out that are lower caliber, but I don't think he's going to be able to stick and move on Magomed Ankalaev for 3 rounds, and I think Ankalaev can deal with Rakic's punches. Rakic has got some power, but he's not Mr. Death Touch, whereas I think Ankalaev's precision in the close range is going to give Rakic a ton of problems, especially when you look at the evidence presented to us with Rakic getting knocked out last time by Yuri Prochazka, who he was thriving against from the long range, but Prochazka consistently put pressure on him and found openings on the inside and was able to knock him out. I think Ankalaev can do pretty much the same thing, but Ankalaev is more defensively sound than a Yuri Prochazka. Well, I'll anticipate he takes less damage from the side of Rakic from range. Somebody say, oh, but the leg kicks. Well, the fact that Ankalaev stands southpaw does limit the calf kicking abilities of Alexander Rakic. He could use the lead leg, but it's not nearly as powerful as that rear leg. I think Ankalaev's good to go. And I think Magomed Ankalaev is going to win by knockout. I think second or third round, a patient Ankalaev finds the kill shots and finally earns his title shot, because that's what we should be talking about, is Magomed Ankalaev and Alex Pereira. Minus 400 for Ankalaev. Rakic at plus 300. I love the side of Magomed Ankalaev winning. I'm anticipating a finish. I'm going to say fight ends inside distance is better than under 2.5, because it could be a late third round stoppage at plus 145. It is for the under 2.5. We don't know what the Ankalaev knockout side is just yet, but I'm anticipating he gets the KO, especially that in the back of Ankalaev's mind, he's got to know, if I finish Rakic, I knock him out, you can't deny me of this shot. If he's in a competitive 3-round fight with Rakic, who knows if the UFC decides, hey, maybe Pereira's going to go fight X person, you know, maybe he fights Aspinall or something like that. But if Ankalaev puts a statement out and he knocks Rakic flat out, if he sleeps him, whether it's ground and pound or a one-punch, it doesn't really matter. If he finishes him, Magomed Ankalaev is going to be an undeniable top contender. A win is great, though. And a win, he becomes the deserving top contender, which he kind of already is, but more so. But a knockout gets the UFC interested in making that matchup even more so. So I'm going to go with Magomed Ankalaev living up to the hype and finding the death touch on Rakic, putting him to sleep. Let's go. Magomed Ankalaev for the W. Next fight, we have our featured bout of the night. It's Lerone Murphy versus Dan Ige. I'm going to be picking Lerone Murphy to win against Dan Ige here. I think Lerone Murphy's a little too crafty for Dan Ige. Murphy's striking is pretty solid. He's got good overall kickboxing. At times, I do feel as though he throws a little bit wild and is, you know, a little inaccurate at points. But overall, with the wrestling threat that he brings on top of the striking, I feel as though it's a pretty effective tactic, because even if he's off target, he can use that to get closer, to mix in takedowns. And even if he's unsuccessful in the takedowns, it helps reset the stand-up. Dan Igue's got clean boxing. He's got power in his hands. He's got nasty looping shots, a nice overhand. He's definitely really good on the feet. I just think Lerone Murphy is also pretty sound on the feet too, and the fact that there is a legitimate wrestling threat in the fight. Dan Igue's not an easy guy to take down, but we've seen him out-grappled in fights before. We've seen him put on his back, and I think Lerone Murphy is probably going to find his way to a unanimous decision. I think it's a competitive fight. I think Ige is going to have some moments, and he might take a round here, but I think Lerone Murphy is going to be able to take the majority of the fight. I can see Ige landing some solid punches in combination and then getting put against the cage, taking down. Then I can see Lerone Murphy ripping him with some leg kicks and more pressure wrestling from Murphy to kind of stifle the onslaught by Ige. I just don't think Ige necessarily has the ability to flatline Lerone Murphy. Though he's got some knockout power. I'm not saying Dan Ige can't crack. Lerone Murphy is incredibly tough. He's super physically fit. I think he's absolutely in his prime right now. And we got to give him his due respect. He's one of the better featherweights on the planet, and you have to ride with the momentum side. I'm going Lerone Murphy by unanimous decision in this fight. I think he's taken Dan Ige out and, recording the biggest win of his life, even though the Barboza win is massive. Beating Dan Ige after Dan Ige's epic fight with Diego Lopez, where he stepped in on a few hours' notice, is a big win to have. So Lerone Murphy to take it home. I got him beating Dan Ige, minus 205 for Lerone, plus 175 for Dan Ige. The over 2.5 is minus 275. I'm going with Lerone Murphy. I'm going with unanimous decision. I think he's going to win this thing. I think there'll be more dominant moments from him as opposed to the contrary. And we're riding with England to take it home. Lerone Murphy beating Dan Ige. 29-28 on 2 judges' scorecards, 30-27 on 1. I think it's going to be competitive, but it's going to be Lerone Murphy controlling the dance and taking it home. So Murphy for the win. Next fight on the card, we have our co-main event of the evening. We have Robert Whittaker versus Khamzat Chimaev. I'm picking Khamzat Chimaev to beat Robert Whittaker. Guys, I tried to be that guy, but I'm not going to be. I've been on Team Khamzat since day one. I've never picked against him, and I've never been wrong. And I'm not going to be wrong this weekend either. I think Khamzat Chimaev has the clear-cut wrestling advantage that is going to be a necessary skill set to win this fight against Rob Whittaker, who has incredibly precise striking. The thing is, Khamzat Chimaev eats a lot of shit for having a close fight with an Usman on short notice. But going back and rewatching it, I'm like, hey, he looked kind of good. He landed takedowns even in round 3. The gas tank wasn't as bad as I feel like we go back and remember it as. Then you rewatch it, it really didn't look bad. He beat Usman. Khamzat Chimaev has the clear wrestling advantage in this fight. He's going to look to make Rob Whittaker uncomfortable with wrestling early on. He's not just going to sit and strike with him, especially in the first round. Khamzat Chimaev is going to get Robert Whittaker down, and he's going to control a lot of the first round. Second round, when we're back to striking, I think things get interesting, but I still feel like Khamzat's wrestling option is going to be real. Though Rob Whittaker has historically solid takedown defense, I can't say that he's going to be able to keep Khamzat off of him for a substantial amount of time, enough time where he's able to, put the dangerous combos together and wear him down and then flatten him out. Is he live for a one-punch KO? Of course. Rob Whittaker has got good power, and he's definitely got the one-shot chance. But I think Khamzat is going to have Whittaker backing up and uncomfortable. I think Khamzat's going to be pressuring forward from the early start of the fight, and I think he's going to take this fight to the floor. Now, it's not impossible that Khamzat finishes Rob Whittaker. I just think you can't really overlook Whittaker's grappling defensive abilities, enough so where he's going to survive. I could see him on the bottom getting beaten up and surviving the ground and pound. Now, let me tell you something, though. If Khamzat takes Robert Whittaker down and beats the shit out of him and finishes him with ground and pound, that is going to be one of the most impressive wins in middleweight non-title history ever. Because Rob Whittaker is the former champion. He's one of the best middleweights on the planet right now. And it's not like anybody makes it look easy per se. Now, granted, Dricus du Plessis hurt him and did take him down and beat him up a bit. Fair point. Du Plessis hit him with shots on the feet that led to the damage. I think Khamzat is going to work with getting this fight to the ground. I don't think Whittaker is going to do well on the floor with Khamzat, but I do think there's a possibility that his defensive skills are good enough so where he survives to the later stages of the fight and ends up losing on the scorecards. But if Khamzat is successful with ground and pound early, and let's say he goes for the more, dominant ground and pound attack game plan as opposed to searching for subs, I think he could wear on Robert Whittaker and end up getting a ground and pound TKO. I kind of feel like it's less likely that he subs Whittaker, though Khamzat Chimaev has tremendous grappling skills. He's not a highly proficient jiu-jitsu fighter. His rear naked choke, when you watch him try to lock it in, is not like this super technical rear naked choke. It's more of the brutalizer choke. And I think that Robert Whittaker, with his grappling knowledge and his Brazilian jiu-jitsu defensive ability, is going to be able to fight off some sloppy rear naked choke attempts. But it's going to then be about if Khamzat is smeshing with that smash-based ground and pound style that he could then, therefore, find the finish on the floor, which is possible. Whittaker is plus 180 as the dog. Khamzat minus 210. I like Khamzat. Over 2.5 is plus money. Wow. I wonder what over 1.5 looks like. I'm really curious. I do feel as though Robert Whittaker, defensively good enough to survive, but I'm wondering if he's going to be exhausted having to deal with Khamzat from top position for more than 5 minutes. Like, could Khamzat potentially suffocate Rob Whittaker with a drowning pressure wrestling style that then just completely exhausts him, and then he's able to maybe find the sub? So inside distance Khamzat is actually a fairly likely outcome. I'll tell you, like, as I'm sitting here talking about it, when I write it down, just thinking to myself, I'm thinking, okay, he probably can grind out the decision, key takedowns late. But when I'm really thinking, can Robert Whittaker deal with Khamzat Chimaev from top position without getting exhausted, absolutely fatigued? Because you're like, oh, well, Usman did. Yeah, but Usman's a, high caliber MMA wrestler. Whittaker's known as, like, a decent Australian wrestler, but there's a different level with the American wrestling of Usman versus, Whittaker's Australian wrestling. He's more so of a kickboxer. He's an MMA striker with good defensive wrestling. I think Khamzat might be live at that inside distance. I'm thinking kind of ground and pound, and maybe that opens up the sub. That's why, if it's a super D-gen line, we'll look at him, but maybe inside distance is the smarter play for the side of Khamzat, with an anticipation that he's going to do damage on the ground, which could lead to the submission, but it could also lead to ground and pound. So Khamzat Chimaev for the win. I think he's beaten Robert Whittaker, and I think he's very live to win this on the ground inside of the distance here. Next fight on the card, main event of the evening. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash the likes. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. I hope you're enjoying the On The Road show. I'm still bringing the fire. Ilia Topuria, Max Holloway. I'm going with Ilia Topuria, guys. I believe in it. I don't believe in the miracle of Max Holloway pulling through with the massive upset and beating Ilia Topuria, who just ended Volkanovski's reign. Ilia Topuria has second-to-none type of boxing in MMA. He's incredibly clean with his hands. He's got very good head movement. He's extremely smooth with his punch combinations. He mixes up the levels, too. He doesn't just go to the head. He's not a headhunter. I've broke down other fights of Ilia, and I have mentioned what I love about him is the way that he attacks the body. I'd consider him a body snatcher. Ilia Topuria mixing shots to the head and body is going to be a smart strategy against Max Holloway. If Topuria is able to close distance and work the body of Holloway, that will then limit the high volume attack of Max Holloway, which he's known for. Now, Holloway does have tremendous boxing in his own right, but if you look at their boxing side by side, Ilia Topuria is evidently slicker than Max Holloway. Though Holloway's precise, he's accurate, and he's got a lot of volume to his strikes, he doesn't have the same smoothness of the way that he lands the punches that Ilia Topuria has. Not saying Holloway can't be effective here. I think Holloway makes this a difficult fight. I believe Ilia Topuria is going to outdog a Max Holloway over the 5 rounds, and I think you could put the BMF belt on the line for Topuria because he's a bad motherfucker, and I know they're not doing it. It's just simply the UFC belt. They're not mixing the two together. I guess to keep Max Holloway as a BMF champ as the backup option in case he ends up taking an L. This is a smart strategy for the UFC because then you can still market huge fights at lightweight with the BMF title on the line. I think Ilia Topuria's head movement is good as well. I think he can avoid some of Max Holloway's shots and then bring heat right back to him. Holloway does have really good movement, and I do think he's fast, and he's got nice combinations. He's good with straight shots. And right now, by many, especially fans that really tuned into that Gaethje fight with a lot of passion, you believe that Max Holloway is a knockout artist. He's not necessarily a one-punch knockout artist, especially at 145. He has knockouts for sure, but at 155 pounds, I truly believe Max Holloway is better. I think he is 1,000% better suited for 155, and winning-wise, it would be better if he was fighting there. Now, of course, opportunity-wise, him dropping to 145 and taking on Ilia Topuria is an amazing chance to recapture the belt. But let's not forget Max Holloway lost 3 fights to Alexander Volkanovski. Ilia Topuria, say what you want about the timeline of when he beat Volk, he absolutely obliterated him. Ilia Topuria has outstanding power. Max Holloway has an extremely good chin, but that does not mean that Topuria's power is not a factor in the fight, because regardless of how good your chin is, even if this fight is assured to go distance, Ilia Topuria landing power shots will cause Max Holloway to be more defensive, therefore open up more combinations for Ilia Topuria. And I think you're going to see Ilia Topuria put that respect out on the table early on with a big shot to Max Holloway. It makes Max think, oh, this guy really does hit that hard. Gaethje didn't do that. Gaethje never caught Holloway with a shot. It's like, whoa. And I don't think Gaethje ever earned the respect of Max Holloway. Ilia Topuria is going to earn that respect early on. He has already called for these two to meet in the center from the jump, and for the first 10 seconds, swing and go to war. Max Holloway said no. He said that would be some dumbest motherfucker shit, not baddest motherfucker shit, which, true story, it's a bad idea, because Holloway could definitely get caught early by a Topuria hook. He's got sensational knockout power. Ilia Topuria is also great on the ground. Don't sleep on his takedowns, okay? He could potentially time some key takedowns and garner a bit of control time. I don't think he beats Max Holloway up from top and dominates him on the ground, but don't be shocked if he mixes that aspect of his game in to mix things up a tad. It's a possibility. And I think Ilia Topuria is superior at this point. And I'm saying, and still champ. Topuria taking it home in the main event. Minus 225 Topuria, plus 190 for Holloway. Over 4.5, minus 105. I'm staying away from the over-unders, especially early in the week. We'll see as the week goes on if maybe I have a change of heart. But right now, staying away from it. I believe Ilia Topuria is going to defend the title against Max Holloway in a historic fight in a badass Abu Dhabi card. Holy smokes. This UFC 308 card is absolutely stacked, so I hope you guys all ride with me for the fight companion. Like I said in the beginning, I'll be back in studio Tuesday. Those are the predictions for this card. Much love for everybody tuning in. Make sure you guys smash the like button, and if you're new, subscribe. Show some love and respect to your boy on the road. So let me know in the comments what you thought of the picks, and if you don't have anything to say, but you just enjoy the content, as always, W in the chat to boost the algorithm for your boy. Not stopping with the content. You know it's coming. Tuesday, back to the normal content flow, so I'll see everybody back in studio then. Much love to each and every one of you. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.